I'm Joyce Hornady. You might say accuracy is my business. I make bullets.
We live and breathe this stuff. This is what we do. We don't do this just for fun. We do it because we've got a better idea.
So we're a bullet company. Fundamentally, that is where Hornady came from. We're going to continue to push the industry and the boundaries of design until we actually do make the absolute most perfect bullet ever manufactured. That's what we're trying to do.
Hornady, 3 generations, 1 family, American made, American owned, accurate, deadly, and dependable. 75 years strong.
Hi, I'm Seth Swerczek with Hornady, and I'm joined today by Senior Ballistician Jayden Quinlan. Jayden, today we're talking about Hornady ammunition for our international customer, and that's something that we take pretty serious.
Absolutely, yeah. When you look at the customer base outside of the United States, you see a lot of different types of rifles and different chamberings that aren't as common, although they are available here in the U.S. And so we really take a look at that and try to design things in a way where the performance is really going to excel in the rifles that you commonly see in international customers.
Awesome. Well, let's walk through some of the ammunition offerings for our international customer and talk about which ones are the best for a certain set of scenarios.
Sure.
The first ammunition line I'd like to talk about is our Superformance line of ammunition. Jayden, walk us through the technology used in Superformance and how we can get that increased velocity.
Sure. Superformance has been around for a while, and one of the things that is synonymous with that ammunition line is increased velocities. When you compare it to any sort of traditional load, you generally see increases in muzzle velocity of 30 to 60 meters per second compared to the traditional loads. And that's a huge boost in performance. That takes your terminal performance window, shifts it farther down range. You're hitting with higher energy. The trajectories are flatter. The wind deflection is less. So it's really a huge benefit. But you can't talk about the velocity, without the bullet too, because that's really what makes the performance. And with the Superformance line loaded with the SSTs, so SST is an acronym for the Super Shock Tip, and what you see with it is very rapid expansion. This is a traditional copper jacketed lead core bullet, and the performance of the lead core hunting bullets almost can't be argued with. They just work so well in so many different circumstances. And with the SST, you have the polymer tip up front, which helps a lot with aerodynamics. So the ballistic coefficient values are higher. You retain more velocity downrange. So that increased velocity you're getting from Superformance is being held by the aerodynamics of that SST bullet. At the same time, that tip also initiates the expansion. So once that bullet hits terminal media, the tip pushes back inside the bullet, and that causes it to mushroom in that traditional manner. That's very important because it does it the same way every time, no matter where your bullet hits, which is important. As a hunter, sometimes we don't make an exact perfect shot every time. We might hit bone, we might hit between bone, we might hit muscle tissue, we don't know. But with the tip of that bullet, it opens the same way no matter what you hit. So that's really a huge benefit.
It is. And like you mentioned, that lead core, that has been a standard for terminal performance for many decades now. Polymer tip drives rearward in there. You get that immediate expansion. And as they say, speed kills. Absolutely. So with Superformance, you get higher muzzle velocities without an increase in pressure or an increase in recoil. And then you have the efficiency of that SST bullet doing such a great job. And where the SST does really well is where you need rapid incapacitation, maybe on driven hunts or on properties where you're hunting, which are bordered very closely by other property that you don't have permission to hunt. You need an animal to have very quick terminal effect, and that SST bullet with the lead core does a great job at that.
Absolutely.
So let's take a look at another Superformance bullet, the CX. It's still in that Superformance line. It gets all the benefits of our Superformance propellant, but now we have the CX bullet. What does that give us?
Absolutely. So the CX from the outside is going to look fairly similar to the SST in that the shape is very aerodynamic. It has that polymer tip on the front of it, But where it differs is on the inside. You take a little bit closer look and you'll see that the CX is a monolithic material. There's no lead in this bullet construction. That means that they're very hard hitting. They penetrate deep. You can get on large animals, you get deep into the vital organs, as well as the groove geometry is different. And we learned some things in research and development that actually lowered the drag based on the groove geometry. That's housed in the CX bullet, as well as the tip is now a heat shield tip.
Okay.
That's a big deal because the aerodynamics benefit even further, and that bullet can be supported with external ballistics calculators like Fordoff.
Excellent. So the CX bullet, it gets all the benefits of our Superformance propellant, plus you get that hard-hitting nature of a monolithic bullet. So if you're hunting in a lead-restricted area, or if you're after bigger game, those big, tough red deer, for example, you want something that will penetrate through shoulder blades and still get through the vitals in the CX, an awesome option. Now, to compare the two, the SST, now that bullet will expand down to around 550 meters per second, even a little bit lower. So that's quite a ways out there.
That's generally going to be somewhere around 300 to 500 meters, depending on the cartridge that you're shooting, the specific bullet you're shooting, which SST you're shooting, as well as the environmentals. But that's quite a ways downrange. I mean, that bullet and the minimum velocity should encompass almost all use cases that you have in European hunting or international hunting.
Well, with the CX, it's going to require just a little bit more muzzle velocity to expand the bullet because it's a little tougher.
So the CX needs about 600 to 610 meters per second. As you stated, it's a harder construction bullet, and so we need a little bit more velocity to get it to expand. But again, if you look at the ballistics tables, you look at the label on the box, you'll see that 610 meters per second is really associated with 400 meters downrange with most cartridges. So even though it needs a little bit more impact velocity than, say, the SST option does, it still performs within an envelope that encompasses almost all of the hunting you would participate in.
Both awesome options. And like we mentioned, speed kills. And although the CX requires more velocity to expand, you mentioned the heat shield tip and those optimized grooves in the bullet. Well, that's just going to help it retain more velocity. Whether you're shooting at 50 meters or 250 meters, it's just going to impact with more velocity. And more velocity on impact is a quicker terminal effect for the animal.
That's right.
All right, Jayden, let's now talk about the Outfitter line of ammunition.
Yes, Outfitter is a really unique ammunition offering. We spent a lot of time thinking about it and making a lot of considerations about the parts of hunting you don't think about all that often, the things that can go wrong, those little details that end up making a huge difference in your overall experience. With Outfitter, the first thing you'll notice is that the cartridge cases are nickel plated. That does a couple things. It offers some corrosion resistance. It aids in feeding, it's nice and smooth. But it also can help you in low light situations, which is something we don't think about a whole lot in hunting, but a lot of animals are harvested in those first couple minutes, of twilight and the last couple as well. And, if you're not sure if you chambered a cartridge or not, and you want to be able to take a look and the lighting's low, that nickel plated case will help you see that cartridge as you pull your bolt back a little bit and look. Some stuff that's a little less noticeable is the fact that this ammunition is completely waterproof. So if you look up around the case mouth in the cannular groove of the CX bullet and down at the primer, both of those ends of the cartridge case are sealed from any moisture intrusion or water intrusion to the point where you can completely submerge this ammunition and it won't compromise it. So if you have that unfortunate circumstance where your entire hunt is soaked in rain or your rifle or your ammunition falls in a stream or something like that, you don't have to worry about it with Outfitter. Topped on top of that is the CX bullet, which we've already talked about, in the Superformance line and some of the international line. And that's just a really advanced bullet that we've learned a lot in the research and development and all these features that we've packed into it with the groove geometry, with the heat shield tip. It gives you a really high performing hunting bullet on top of temperature stable powders. So you're not going to have the same velocities, the high velocities that you get out of the Superformance line with that powder technology. That's not necessarily what you're getting in Outfitter. Outfitter is a more traditional propellant technology that's kind of tried and true. And all those things are wrapped up into a load that we feel you can select and not have to worry about any of those little things with your hunt. This stuff's just going to work every time, no matter what the circumstance.
That is, and it's great. You can do any hunt you want, an adventure hunt or the hunt locally. You're going to have no question about the performance. This is as rugged as it gets. The waterproofing, the nickel plating, the propellants, and then that CX bullet, how that performs so well, down to about 610 meters per second. And the outfitter offerings available from 243 Winchester all the way up to 375 Ruger.
That's right. Yeah, we talked a lot about, with the international lines, we really tried to support those cartridges that are very prevalent in the European market. The outfitter line, you're going to see that kind of full lineup of the traditional American cartridges, and we're well aware that the 6.5 Creedmoor, the 308, the 30-06, a lot of these kind of very popular cartridges in the United States are heavily used in Europe as well. And so you have just another option, depending on what your specific circumstances are, that gives you a no compromise ammunition for your hunt.
Jayden, our Custom International line of ammunition, again, it says it right in the name, international. It's for that international hunter. What makes Custom International for Hornady?
Well, we take a look at what rifles are being used, what are very popular bullet selections and loads and velocities, and that's exactly what Custom International is. It's what the majority of people are going to want most of the time.
Okay.
So it's loaded with our traditional interlock bullet, which is a lead core, lead-tipped bullet. I mean, this thing has been the staple of terminal performance for well over 70 years now. It just can't be argued with. So when it comes to terminal performance on animals, it's fantastic from a small deer all the way up to, plains game in Africa. This bullet will do it all. When that bullet impacts terminal media, that lead tip starts to mushroom out and it pushes the jacket open. And as the jacket opens, you get that nice traditional mushroomed bullet with large surface area. It transfers all that energy into the animal. These bullets are typically found on the offside hide, which means they deposit 100% of their energy into the animal and create great wound channels.
What's the minimum impact speed for our interlock bullet?
It's about 550 meters per second. Again, you look at the trajectory tables there, and this is also going to encompass, 95% of your use case for hunting that you're going to have internationally across the cartridges. When it comes to propellant, we select the propellants based on good, accurate performance, good muzzle velocity and consistency. So it's just an all-around, well-rounded package.
Right. So you get the traditional propellants, which offer, like you mentioned, great accuracy, good temperature stability, reliable performance no matter where you're at in the world. And then you pair that up with the legendary interlock bullet from Hornady. Like you said, it's the measuring stick for terminal performance that all other bullets are compared to. So hard-hitting performance from the smallest deer to the African Plains game. The Custom International from Hornady, really a solid option as an across-the-course type of ammunition, whether you're hunting small game in France or, like we've been talking about, the African Plains game. There's going to be something in that Custom International line for you.
Absolutely.
The Hornady International line is really the most tailored ammunition and bullet combination that we have for the international hunter. Jayden, tell us about Hornady International that features exclusively our ECX bullet.
Absolutely. Yeah, the ECX bullet, we took a look at the chamberings that are offered in a lot of the European and international communities, and there's a lot of differences between those and kind of the standard ones that we see in the United States. And we were able to do some things to the bullet design that really optimize the performance in those rifles and chambers. Not only from an accuracy standpoint, I mean, these bullets shoot very, very well, but also on the terminal performance side. One of the things we really wanted to consider was any damage to meat that would occur, because in a lot of cases, meat can be sold at markets and stuff like that on the international market. And so that's a concern for the hunter in what he's selecting. And so what we were able to design these bullets to do is have very good wound cavity characteristics, but a straight line track, which most of our bullets have anyway. But that's really important to consider, because you don't want a bullet that maybe is going to tumble or yaw and end up, in the hind quarter or something along those lines, where you damage all that meat that you didn't intend to. You wanted that bullet to go right where your shot placement was. The ECX is great for that. We also utilize the flat point on it, the flat tip. That means you get very rapid expansion, really good energy transfer, terminal performance out to that 200 or 300 meter range out of most of the cartridges in the lineup, which is really the lion's share of the hunting that we see done.
I'm glad you brought that up with the flat me-plat, because although these bullets look like they have, a shorter, more rounded, fuller ogive, that generally helps with our accuracy, but it makes that terminal performance just that much better. And so if you're on a driven hunt where you need quick incapacitation, that big frontal diameter really has a great terminal effect. Like you mentioned, minimal meat damage, but a excellent terminal performance profile. Then you couple that with the propellants that we select and the smattering of cartridges that we offer, from 223 Remington all the way up to 9.3 by 62, the Hornady International is really an outstanding option with an outstanding monolithic bullet.
Absolutely. Yeah, the propellants are going to be temperature stable, so if you're hunting in cold environments or hot environments, you're not going to see huge changes to your performance. Again, that bullet is built for the European rifle and the European customer, and we think it's a great solution.
So, Jayden, we have some amazing ammunition offerings for the international customer, and we just went through and broken down each one, the propellants, the bullet technology, how they work together, and again, a lot of good options. Well, let's now talk about, how do you pick one?
Sure, great question, because like you said, there's plenty of options. So which one is best for you? Well, there's a couple different considerations. One that's upfront and pretty easy to make is whether you have the ability to use a lead core bullet or not. That is a common issue in Europe and a consideration that many have to make. That's a pretty easy initial, decision point. With the Hornady International, obviously you have a lead-free option, and then with Superformance with the CX bullet, you have a lead-free option. But if you're not restricted to that, the next kind of thing to think about is, what kind of ranges are you going to be hunting at? What style of hunting is this? Is it a driven hunt? Are you going to have very rapid shots that are going to be, let's say, 100 meters and in? Mm-hmm. If that's the case, the Superformance SST, the Hornady International with the ECX, those are great options. And one of the reasons is that the terminal effects that you get are very, very rapid. And I think you made the point of, if you're hunting in an area that you may be bordering other property, or you need that animal to go down immediately where it stands, those two options are great.
Right. And you mentioned it earlier as well, speed kills. Yeah. And with Superformance, you have all the speed.
Yes.
And with Hornady International, that's loaded to traditional velocity, but that bullet was purposefully designed to expand rapidly and still cause minimal meat damage. So Superformance SST, Hornady International, great options for the driven hunt, or where you're hunting, maybe your ranges won't be quite extended, maybe that 100 meters and end, like you mentioned.
Sure. Although they do perform outside of that window. So if you do, you do take a shot at an animal at 150 or 200 meters, that performance is still there for you.
Sure. Plenty of overlap.
Yes, absolutely.
With all four of these options.
Yes, you can't go wrong with any of them. Now, when it comes to, maybe a little bit farther distances, maybe you're hunting some bigger game species. Maybe you've taken a trip down to Africa, or you're down in Africa and you're doing some hunting. That really, you can take any of these options. But a lot of times what we see in Africa compared to the European hunting is a little bit longer shot distances.
Sure.
And so with that a consideration, the Custom International, again, you have 70 years of terminal effect reputation wrapped up in that interlock bullet. But the Superformance with the CX, you can't argue with that either, because a lot of those African animals you want a little bit deeper penetration on, and that bullet absolutely gives it to you with those advanced aerodynamics in case you have to take that 300 or maybe 400 meter shot and you're capable of doing it.
Yes, exactly right. So for the bigger game, something like a big red stag, the Custom International with that tried and true interlock bullet, great weight retention, great terminal effect, or the CX bullet, again, longer ogive, a little bit better ballistics for those extended range type of shots, and then penetration to spare. These things, the CX bullet generally will go through a gel block. These things, incredibly deep penetrating, both great options for one, if the range is outside of that 100 or 200 meters, or if you're hunting that bigger, tougher game.
Absolutely.
Okay, Jayden, so you've got to make some decisions here, and the first decision is, can you use a lead core bullet, or do you have to be lead-free? So with our lead core options, we have the Custom International with the interlock bullet and the Superformance with the SST. Now, lead always has been and always will be one of the best materials for a bullet core.
Yes.
Easy to manufacture, easy to make accurate, and outstanding terminal performance. So let's compare our lead core bullets, the interlock and the SST.
Sure. Well, again, like we mentioned, that interlock bullet has a reputation that's so well established on terminal performance. It works incredibly well. Now, that 550 meter per second kind of bottom end threshold that bullet is going to work up to as designed, that gets eclipsed a little bit by the SST because of the aerodynamics of that bullet. Both of those bullets will expand down to about that 550 meter per second line. However, the aerodynamics of the SST will push that down range. So that would be another consideration. What kind of hunting am I doing from a range standpoint? Is all of this going to be 100 or 200 meters and in, or is there a possibility of a 300 or 400 meter shot? If that's the case, you're hedging your bets a little bit with the SST, sure, although the interlock will still do that job. I mean, that bullet is so well-rounded, it will do it. But the increased velocity of Superformance that you get, the aerodynamics of the SST bullet, they might lend that to being a better decision for that specific use case where you might be beyond 200 meters. If it's within 200 meters, you can't go wrong with either one. Both of them produce great wound channels. Accuracy is good. It just depends on maybe what your rifle likes better.
Sure. And that's a good problem to have when both of them are going to work really well for you. Another point would be, up in the high seat on a driven hunt where the animals are going to be very close, and generally you want those animals dispatched very quickly. The rapid expansion that you get from the SST might be a better option there as well.
Absolutely. Yep.
So that's our lead core bullets. Well, if you're in an area that's lead restricted, we've got some good options there as well. We've got our Hornady International with the ECX bullet, and we've got the Superformance with our CX bullet. Now let's compare those two projectiles.
Sure. Well, again, it's a similar next step as to what ranges are you going to be hunting at. That ECX bullet in the Hornady International, it was designed specifically for the rifles that we see common. It was designed specifically for the terminal performance that we want to see, minimal meat damage, immediate incapacitation. The CX bullet offers much better aerodynamics. It has a very sleek shape to it, so it's going to retain velocity higher. You already get more velocity because of the Superformance technology. So that's going to give you more performance downrange. So again, that 200 meters and in, the ECX is going to be tough to beat. The CX will work great there. There's nothing wrong with it. But if you want that rapid, purpose-built performance for your rifle, the ECX might be a better solution. However, if you're possibly going to be shooting at an animal beyond 200 meters, say out to 400 meters, that CX is really built for that job.
All right, Jayden. So let's say you're a hunter and you don't have lead restrictions. You can use whatever projectile you want. How are you going to decide to go with a lead core bullet or something that's monolithic?
Sure, great question. Well, in general, the lead core bullet is going to expand more rapidly because that lead is a softer material than the monolithic bullets are. So if you're looking for that really rapid, immediate incapacitation, the lead bullets are going to be a great tool for that. The monolithics work great too, the CX and the ECX, specifically that ECX because it's built to do that job. But when it comes to the lead core bullets, they're going to work really well, really quickly. Now, one thing you will see with, say, the ECX bullet is the likelihood of meat damage is lessened compared to a lead bullet because you don't have any bits of the bullet that are breaking off during the expansion process. You're not losing any little pieces of jacket or lead fragment that may damage associated meat in that area. So the ECX or the CX give you essentially 100% weight retention. The only weight retention that you lose is the polymer tip itself, which really isn't going to do any sort of meat damage because it doesn't weigh very much. But because that bullet is completely held together and is a straight line track, you're not going to get into any meat in the ancillary area, from where your shot impacted. Some other considerations are the range. The lead core bullets will generally expand at lower velocities because that lead core is softer than the monolithic offerings. So it really just depends on what kind of hunting you're doing, what your rifle likes, what your preferences are. I mean, you can't go wrong with any of these options, although each of them is built a little bit more for a specific job than the rest, they will all do the job.
Yep. And that's, again, another good problem to have where there's plenty of overlap. And if you select one ammunition offering, you can do a huge variety of hunting all over the world and not be ill-equipped.
Absolutely.
Jayden, thanks for walking through the different ammunition we have for our international customer. And I really feel like there are no ammunition manufacturers anywhere else in the world that take innovation as seriously as we do. From bullets like our ECX is a prime example where we take a look at exactly what a customer base needs and design a projectile specifically for that customer. We've got something that really anybody anywhere in the world can have a successful hunt with.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's really cool to see, a lot of times, we spend so much focus on the United States market and, what it wants, but to be able to purpose build things for that international customer is really rewarding because they're out there every day using it and they need that performance.
Awesome. Guys, we hope you found this educational and you walk away with a better idea of what ammunition best suits your hunting needs. Good luck out there and good hunting.